Our podcast is called Rowan On. Each time we have a guest, it will be a specific topic.
I came across them because I was also a theater student. I teach in pedagogy. I see such a beautiful awakening. The work of the artist is to save souls, and is to save lives.
Hello and welcome to Rowan On. Today I'm here with Sarah Sanford, and this will be our episode called Rowan On Devised Performance. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for being here. You are an associate professor at the Pig Iron School, and specifically you're part of the MFA in Devised Performance program. Mm-hmm. Did I get all that right?
Associate teaching professor.
What's the difference?
That's a Rowan thing. Actually, It's new to me.
Okay.
There are different sort of expectations and requirements between being a teaching professor and just a professor. I'm still honestly coming to learn it all, but I am in a recontracting process, my first recontracting process as a teaching professor. And so there's just certain expectations from the department as you, if you're a teaching professor, I think the focus is more on the teaching and developing yourself as a teacher as opposed to having scholarship and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, it sounds great to me. Okay, so Pig Iron.
Yeah.
Where did that name come from?
It's a question that we get asked so many times.
I'm sure.
I was not there at the original moment of the founding of the company, but I knew most of the folks who founded it, and so the lore has sort of passed on to me, and I can pass it on to you. Apparently, there were many, many names that were sort of gone through as potential company names. Mm-hmm. They landed on Pig Iron, I think, because it is a mixture of the concrete, sort of the rough and ready, with the poetic. Because Pig Iron is a kind of rough, unhewn metal that, historically, I guess, was used in the fly systems of theaters. So it's the counterweight which brings the sets on and off. So it's something that's very concrete and practical and heavy, used to make something that is very poetic.
So that's why in the logo and artwork we see things that look like simple machines, pulleys, ropes. Okay,
exactly.
Now that makes sense. Very good, thank you. Mm-hmm. So you weren't there in the moment it was founded, but there's the Pig Iron Company and the Pig Iron School. And I think founded in 1995, so just celebrated a 30-year anniversary.
Yeah, sort of in the midst of it, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what you can tell me about the early days of these things coming together. And did this company and the school start at the same time? Tell me.
No. So the company sort of was born out of a group of Swarthmore graduates. Students at the time started working together at Swarthmore College in the theater department. And most of these folks were a couple years older than me, but I came across them because I was also a theater student. And so I would be in scenes, I would be in, past them, I ran sound for something. And Dan Rothenberg, one of the founding members, was a junior when I was a freshman and came and found me in the sound booth and was like, hey, do you want to be in my scene for my directing class? So it was all working together in college. So Dan, among some other Swarthmore students, decided to make a show and bring it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That show, I think, the way it's talked about, it was a big old mess, but, and it wasn't a mess, but it was the Odyssey. They decided to stage the Odyssey, which is an epic.
Yeah.
And the story goes that I think their venue in Edinburgh was a church. They performed the first show, there were 5 people, but then word got around, and little by little, more and more people came, and they had a 5-star review.
Wow.
In the Scotsman. And so, Edinburgh is this amazing festival where there's hundreds of performances and people are out, selling their show, handing out postcards. You're seeing show after show after show, from comedy to straight theater to cabaret. And so, that was the moment where I think, Pig Iron was like, let's make a company, let's make a show, let's bring it to Edinburgh. And then, after that moment, the question is, well, do we do it again? And they did. They made another show, brought it to Edinburgh. And, again, I joined the company, so that was 95, 96, 97. I joined the company in 2001.
Okay.
And in those early years, after that first show, some of the core ensemble members, some of them were still at Swarthmore and graduated. Some went to École Jacques Lecoq in Paris, which is a school where I ended up training as well. A founding company member, Dito van Rijgersberg, went and studied at Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City. So people did different things, but then the company, was strong enough that everyone kind of came back together, and it became a sharing of learning and a sharing of approaches. So when I came along in 2001, I had just graduated from the Lecoq School in Paris, and one of the early company members, Emmanuel Delpech, had decided to not do the current show that was being made, and I was offered the role just because I knew them and I had this similar training. And so that was super lucky. I mean, you get out of school and you get offered a role in a show with the company that you've been dreaming about working with forever. So that was pretty amazing. The school, jumping ahead many years now, the school was really the sort of idea, thought, I think inspiration of another founding company member, Quinn Borridell, who is the school director now.
Right.
And I had studied with Quinn. I had taken classes with Quinn. He came to Swarthmore when I was still a student, led workshops. And he has always been a wonderful teacher. And so it was no surprise to me that this was something he wanted to do.
Right.
He approached me and Emmanuel and said, do you want to be the other two core faculty members? And this was in 2011 or so.
Okay.
And so we have been core faculty members of the school ever since. And I guess you could say, how do the school and the company sort of coexist and what's their relationship? I think, Pig Iron has always, even before the school, we've always been teaching artists. Every time we went on tour or had a residency at a university, part of that work, part of that journey, that travel was always meeting fellow artists and exchanging ideas and exchanging approaches.
Yeah,
so we'd
so
always
it's
lead
natural.
workshops. Yeah. And I have such fond memories of leading workshops in Poland or, at a university like Indiana University in Pennsylvania. Just, you meet so many people, weirdos and wonderful spirits like yourself. And often it's cross-cultural and it's a really wonderful meeting. And so I think that what happened, this love of teaching has always been very strong in Quinn, and he decided, one time he was like, I want to start a school. It feels like the next natural step for Pig Iron. We were getting into our 30s and our 40s, and it's like, well, are we going to try to keep doing the same thing the company has always done, or are we going to allow for change? And I think the school was a natural sort of next step for the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very unique, special, different sort of program. So let's talk a little bit about that. Why is the MFA in Devised Performance specifically different and special?
There have been so many acting approaches, approaches to making theater, approaches to the art of performance. And there's been a lot of, voices and traditions that have sort of filtered down through the ages. And there's a certain sort of, I guess we would call it the system, Stanislavski system of acting, which has, was brought over from Russia, from some American artists who studied with Stanislavski in Russia years and years ago. And so as it's gotten filtered down, you could say it's really become sort of the main approach to acting training in the U.S. And in a sense, the way that actors are trained, you see that in performance, you see that in plays, from Broadway to regional theater. Like there's a certain relationship between the script, right? And how actors are taught to work with that script, and
Right.
how directors are taught to stage that script. And there's a very sort of strict role, designation
Right.
in that, and it works. And it's
Sure.
awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get a play on stage in, from the page to the stage in like 3 weeks? And it works. I was very dissatisfied with that model in college. I found it a little bit boring. I found it a little bit inaccessible. I found it, for me particularly, devoid of an entry point from a physical place. It felt to me very like either you're a good actor or you're not. And so when I went to Lecoq and I started doing more physical approaches, I was like, oh, this is what it is to be a theater artist. Not just an actor, not just a director, not just a playwright, but to actually step into a space where you're working with other people, you're working with a theme, you're all like, you're throwing ideas at the wall, and in real time you're seeing what is functioning, what is exciting, and then you're figuring out, well, why is that exciting? Okay, now we know, now let's keep building off of that. And so you're writing on your feet, you're creating stage images, you're working with rhythm, you're finding characters, right? And I think that sort of desire to make something from scratch and to feel inspired from many different directions, to not have to just like do what the director tells you to do.
Right.
It's like actually to have a say in the creation of an original work. I think that is what makes it really unique and special, and what makes it appeal to to artists who want something new. They're not satisfied with being cast in a certain role. They want to get in the soil and like work their hands through it and see what comes out of that exploration.
Right. It's a journey, and it's like I would say it's like ensemble led. It's a team sport. There's no, like you're saying, there's no script that you work from. You create together from scratch, and a big part of it, or a big piece of it, is the motions movement.
Yeah.
And that, from my visits, it seems it sort of gets you in touch with your body, so you're not, as you were saying, in your head, thinking, this is my script, these are my lines, I'm here. It's the whole self,
Yeah.
So it is different. It's this improv, this building together. It's not, we have a director and this is the role and this is the script from this author or this playwright. So it is not your typical, when you think of theater school. It's different.
And I would say, like, you're really sort of focusing on the process. And when the process is different, the product also tends to be different.
Sure.
Which, I find really exciting. Because you just, as Pig Iron, one of the things that Pig Iron always used to say is, what is the next scariest thing? Like, what's our next project going to be? How is it going to look different from the one we just did? And so something that I love is that when you enter a devising process, you have reference points. Like, maybe there's like a dance piece that someone saw and they're like, I really want to figure out how we can make a show that, has this element to it. Or, like an installation, or like there's different input coming in, but what it turns into, is usually very unpredictable and very fresh. And that's another really exciting thing about it. It's the product is, you don't know what it's going to be sometimes.
Right. It's surprising performance art. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Pig Iron joining the Rowan family. Tell me how that happened and what was that experience like and how's it going?
Cool. Well, thank God for Rowan. My my information is just a little bit limited, just because I wasn't on the ground floor of like making this connection happen. But I will speak from what I have witnessed and what I know. When UArts shut down, pig iron was one of the many casualties of that event. And we had to stop our operations for a semester.
Okay.
We were looking for an institutional partner. And this is really where, like, Quinn, who is the school's director, and our managing director, Jasmine, they were working, and many other people were working really, really hard, sending out feelers to like, okay, well, where, because as the pig iron program, we don't have that accreditation to offer an MFA.
Right.
So we needed the institutional partner. What happened, if I'm remembering correctly, Rowan was, one of several schools that Quinn was in communication with. And Rowan was really able, and the theater and dance department in particular, I would say, and the dean, Rick,
Yeah.
they were really able to pull together, sort of like agree that yes, this is something that would be great for Rowan, and just able to make it work, just bureaucratically, just to like bring everything together so that we could get up and running again after that one semester off. We happen to know many of the professors in the theater and dance department already, because many of them spring out of the Philly scene, the Philly art scene. Mm-hmm. And so there was that kind of kinship.
Yeah.
There are a couple of professors that I know of on the Rowan theater and dance faculty who are very passionate about devising. There's a devising course, so it just seemed like a nice marriage.
Right.
And that we could kind of, support one another. And that is what has happened. I have really, really enjoyed joining the Rowan faculty. I have found nothing but support and a welcome, which has been really lovely,
Yeah.
And hopefully we are, both through the class that my students teach here in the undergrad division, bringing some of our particular magic to the program as well.
Yeah. That's really great to hear. So maybe we can talk a little bit about my visits to Pig Iron.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So I came to Pig Iron. I brought some children with me first and saw a show that the MFA students put on. It was the Clown Soiree, and it was a lot of fun. They did a great job. And then that was just, just wanted to get a sense and do a little research and see the space and meet some folks. And that was really fantastic. And then I came and I sat in one of the classes that you teach, Pedagogy, and met the students, and they just brought me right in, and I got to do warm-ups with them. We got to play, and it was a lot of fun. And then you gave me an assignment for me to create a performance. And that immediately, I'm looking at it and I'm reading your email and I'm thinking, gosh, this is going to be tough. This is a challenge. There are a lot of rules and things.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, gosh, I can't have any makeup or costumes or props or, it's just going to be me and a small table. And so I immediately asked if I could break rules. And you said no, because these rules are here for a reason. So let's talk about a little bit about that before we continue. What's it like having me come in and visit? What were the students, how did they feel about it? When you gave me the assignment, what was the thinking? All that sort of thing.
It was awesome to have you come in.
Thank you.
It was affirming for me as someone who's been teaching this stuff for years to see the assignment that I gave you come to life. Every now and then, I find as a teacher, sometimes you go back to the sort of root of it and you're like, why am I doing this again? And does it matter?
Yeah.
And your coming and doing that assignment was a moment of me sort of being reminded that this work works on people. It opens people. It asks things of us from a sort of expression point of view, like, and this is part of why the rules are there. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't have costumes, you can't have props, because you have to create those yourselves with just your body. And it's possible to do that, but you don't know it's possible until you try, right?
Right.
It's in the finding.
Yes.
Yeah, that the thing happens, right? And that
it's
we
like
see it.
You're solving a puzzle. You have to figure this out.
Yeah, and you have to be brave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to let go and just dive in.
And that's one of the things that I think when you create something, you create a draft of it, you show it to your teachers, and then your teachers receive that. They tell you what is there and what they see, and then what's possible.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, this is working, go in that direction. This isn't working, here's why.
Yeah.
And so, it's that conversation. So it was really affirming to watch you do that and to watch you make those edits and see how they made your piece better.
Yeah.
I guess, other aspects of your question, your visit.
The students.
Oh, the students. Well, they are in Pedagogy 1, which is known as Foundations of Teach-Learn Theory. That's the official title. And so they are just like at the beginning of their pedagogy journey. And often I don't make the giving of feedback like a real theme that we focus on until much later. Mm-hmm. Really, that first semester is about revisiting the pedagogy that they've already learned and sort of, introducing improvisations and finding the words for that. But you gave us an opportunity to really focus on feedback. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I prepared them and we talked about it, but it was this amazing opportunity for them to not give feedback to each other, which is often what happens just because of the nature of the course. But the stakes of a person who they don't know, they're working on these skills of seeing, identifying, and choosing, because you could always say 20 things, but you have to say 2 or 3. Yeah. Yeah. And so it gave them the chance to try to be that objective observer as a faculty member. I thought they did a beautiful job. I thought you did a beautiful job. And it makes it real for them in a nice way.
Yeah. It was so much fun. It was such a joy. They're fantastic. Yeah. I really enjoyed being part of the class and observing and playing and performing, and I thought they did a great job with the feedback. And we talked about in one of our, we sat down and had a circle and sort of talked about the experience, and I said, I really feel like what you're learning as far as the feedback and giving that constructive feedback is so important, because no matter what you do in life, you're going to get feedback and you're going to deliver it and you're going to receive it. So being able to deliver it in a way where it will actually be, received the way you intend, mm-hmm. and where the person will improve is a gift, I think. It's mm-hmm. really an important skill to have. And I thought they did a great job, and you teaching them that, I thought it was great. So I really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad.
Speaking of students, what do you think what is it that they're gaining from being in the program? What will they leave this program and go on to do, or what sort of impact will they have? Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot to be said for agency, like artistic agency and autonomy that our students gain in our program. The wish, the hope, is that students who come to our program, there's a transformation that happens, right, over the 2.5 years or 2 years if you're a certificate student, that there's a sort of depth that opens up in you as an artist, an ability to talk about what it is you do and why you do it, an ability to go out and, produce the work it is that you're passionate about making, an ability to go and work with other artists and to collaborate. I think that there's a big focus on performing in our program, but the idea is not like, oh, you're just going to go out and be a performer. We don't really have like a showcase where we invite agents. Our program isn't as, I think it's much more open than that. We really see it as an opening that we hope will continue after our students graduate, because their curiosity has really been exercised and expanded. And we hope that curiosity will, continue. And our students go on to do vastly different things, which is really exciting, because there's no cookie cutter student that comes to our program or leaves our program. And the fact that they've been able to find a common language across those different passions and build original pieces with that common language, I think is really quite something, especially in a moment where finding a common way forward and a way to be in a room together and talk together and create together is feeling a little hard right now,
Yeah.
So.
Great answer. So one of the things I was chatting with your students about, we were talking about, so we had done some of the movement exercises, and then a couple of them went over to a wall and just started doing handstands. And I'm like, oh, be careful. And they're like, oh no, we got this. We take acrobatic class. That is so cool. So a part of there's some acrobatic and catapulting happening. Tell me about that.
Not catapulting of bodies, by the way.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yes, there's an acro class. They take acrobatics twice a week.
Okay.
And catapult is actually the name of their thesis project.
Okay.
So in their 5th semester, they make an original evening length work. Ensemble-based work, and that's called catapult.
Okay.
So it's meant to catapult them into their career and into their
Not
artistic
physically.
life. No.
Okay, good to know. But they do acrobatics.
They do.
And I have seen some photos online, and they're in these, I don't know, they look like slings, and they're obstacle course kind of things, and jumping and tumbling and all those things. Tell me about what that does for students when they're learning.
Yeah. So when I went to the Lecoq School always had an acro class. I don't know if it always did, but when I was there, it did. And the idea was that, if our bodies are our instruments as performers, we want them to be able to do anything, in service to the piece. And Lecoq saw acrobatics as sort of like the body at its limit. And it was never just for pure technique or virtuosity's sake. It was always like the acrobatics have to serve the piece, the imagination of the artist. And so, in the book that he wrote called The Moving Body, or Le Corps Poétique in French, he says, there's a character from Commedia dell'arte named Arlecchino. And the example he gives is Arlecchino, I think, gets so excited or so scared, he does a backflip. And so it's an extension, right, of the scenario, of what's happening, of the situation. And so in acrobatics, I think what our students learn such an important understanding of their bodies in space. They learn sort of, how to align yourself so that you can support yourself. just health and maintenance of your body so that you feel strong and able to do things. A big sort of theme at the school is balance and imbalance. And this notion that when you go on stage, when you play a character, whenever you depict something that happens, like an event, right? In a play, something is set off balance, and we're always searching to rebalance, right? And so this notion of balance and off balance, it's not something we ever want to do to the point where it's dangerous, we hurt ourselves. But you have to learn how to play off balance.
Right.
And so that it moves the audience, right? And it moves you. So these notions you see, like they have resonance within something like acrobatics, where you are working purely with the body, and it's sort of balance and off balance. So there's, the Lecoq also said this thing, and I'm probably bastardizing his words, but all of these things have like been filtered down, and they come out of my mouth, I find, when I'm teaching. But this thing he said is, if you make the outside bigger, then the inside will become bigger.
Right.
And so if you make the expressive capacity of the body bigger, if you extend yourself into space, it means you're bigger to receive impulses and sensations. And you'll find that your psychology, your emotions, all of that starts to expand as well.
Yes, you said something when I was there similar to that. Let's stand up and stretch and be tall and big. And when you physically do that, inside you feel that way too. Is that right? Does that sound about right?
Yes.
And that made sense.
Yeah.
If you stand tall and, with confidence, then you'll feel that.
Yeah.
So that made sense.
Oh, sorry, this other thing about the
yeah.
handstand.
Oh, yes.
You have to be able to see the world upside down.
Ah.
Like, change your perspective
That's great.
on the world and see what you learn from that.
Yeah.
So it's this, this upside down orientation, which broadens your mind.
Yeah. Huh. I'm going to have to work on my handstands. And speaking of Lecoq, am I getting that right? Okay. That you, when I was there, you had a session with the masks.
Neutral mask.
Neutral mask. And so I did a little research online and saw that there are these 5 masks, the neutral mask, and then there are these others. So tell me, so is that part of the sort of this type of devised performance theater, or is this something, more widely taught in theater, the mask teachings?
Yeah. The way we approach mask is very much influenced by how it was taught at Lecoq. Mm-hmm. And Lecoq himself had a period in his life where he was French, but he went to Italy and he saw commedia. He studied with, commedia masters, and he was really inspired. It inspired him in a way that the theater in France at the time did not. And so mask, I think, for him as a teacher and as a performer became really important. And the reason for that, I think, is when we put on a theatrical mask, we are asked to meet the mask. The mask makes a proposal. It's a form that has it projects a certain movement in the space. It projects a certain gaze, a certain breath. And so it asks us to meet that with our own body. And that's a level of performance that it's much larger than a sort of film acting or something that is, more of on a psychological level or an ideological level, right? It's really, the full body is engaged when you put on a mask. So that became a part of his teaching. And I'm not sure what the 5 masks are that you're referring to, but...
Well, I think it's, do you teach that there are 3?
No, I don't teach that there's a particular number at all.
Okay.
There's just different sort of kinds of masks that we work with.
Okay.
But I mean, mask work it's varied. There's many people. There are people all over the world who teach different mask traditions, and they come from different cultures, and so they have a different relevance. The masks that we teach in our program, we start with a neutral mask, which is the mask of all masks. I mean, there's a lot of like lofty sayings that come in when, with the Lecoq pedagogy. But basically the mask of all masks, what that means is that it is the mask of balance. It is the mask of calm, the mask that allows you to see and receive and reflect the world around you. It's not a mask that you perform. It's a tool that you work with in the studio so that later on you can put on other masks, like character masks.
Right.
But if you haven't done that work of the neutral mask, those character masks are going onto your body with all of its contradictions.
Yes.
Whereas the neutral mask is there to open you up and dilate you so that you have the body of a performer and you can write anything on it that you want.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's the smallest mask. Yes.
The clown nose.
The clown nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the future for you, the school, students, the industry? You can pick one of those, all of those, however you want to answer.
I feel like I know so little. I feel like I don't know how to answer that question. So much feels like it's changing right now in our world. And so I feel quite humbled by that question. I recently reached out to a dear friend and mentor of mine, former teacher at Lecoq, and he still teaches around the world, named Giovanni Fusetti. Wonderful Italian, crazy man, who has come and taught at the school and has led workshops for pig iron. I referred to, how can be tricky to navigate your emotions and your feelings of purpose when all of this war is happening in the world and when our government is doing these things that I don't know, I feel like I wake up with a sense of dread every day, to be honest. And yet we go into the studio and we play games and we try impossible projects. And he said this thing in his email back to me. He said, our artistic grandparents, like Lecoq, like Suzanne Bing, like Jacques Copeau, all of these people who were in sort of European circles in like the, early to mid 20th century, which is the soil that Lecoq really grew out of during World War II. And they were dealing with horrific events in their world, and it strengthened their commitment to art making and to the human, like the soul of humanity that, that finds itself in this work and is reflected in this work. And that helped set me back in the conviction and the humility of what we do, and the conviction that the future has to, like pig iron and I and my students, like we have to keep doing this work, not to get all like serious about it, but it really does sometimes feel like the work of the artist is to save souls, and is to save lives. And for me, I was fortunate enough in my schooling to find supportive spaces as an artist, and spaces, and my parents, who were like, if you love it, you should do it.
Right.
And so trying to continue, I teach undergrads, and trying to give them that space where they can be in pursuit of that which makes them feel alive, that which makes them feel in communion with other humans, and in communion with that deepest part of themselves, which is the desire to express, the desire to exist, and to see yourself reflected in other human beings.
Yeah.
So that is I didn't expect to get quite that broad in my answer.
No, I think it's great.
But there's a deep conviction in what we do, and we're going to keep doing it.
That's right. That's right. That's sort of in general art for me is like a spiritual need.
Yeah.
So completely understand that. And it is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, I think. So I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so let's play just a quick game.
Love it.
Before I let you go. Now, I brought a
wondering
bag,
what that bag was.
of goodies. I'm just we're going to try something, okay? I'm going to put something on this little table. And
Should we move our mugs?
yeah, let's move our mugs. We don't have any spills. And as you gave me an assignment, I'm going to give you an assignment. And I'm going to just put a random thing, and I would like you to respond, okay? Either accusation or apology. So either you're feeling accused of something, or you're accusing, or you are apologizing, or have to demand an apology. Okay, that is all the prompts I'm giving you, and we're just
Accusation or apology?
yeah.
Okay.
And we're just gonna see how it goes. Okay.
All right.
All right. Here we go. Let's see. And you can engage with it however you want.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Is he gonna be okay? I'm so sorry. Oh my God, what did I say to make you? He's totally stunned.
Yes.
He's totally stunned. Should I get someone? Should I find someone? Does he need help?
All right. Let's try another one.
Okay.
All right.
This feels like a drinking game or something.
Right? It could be. I mean, it really could be.
All right, what in the world? Why do you think you can just lay that in front of me? That is totally obscene, totally disgusting. You're unbelievable.
I am.
Like, the audacity to just I mean, come on, there's no order to that.
Right, but don't you think you should?
Touch it?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Are you, okay, I'll touch it, but I'm not responsible for what happens. All right, you brought this here.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna touch it now. You're just gonna watch me? Just gonna sit there and watch me touch it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have no choice. You've given me no choice.
Right.
Fine, here I go. Oh God, ugh. I'm just, it's worse than I thought, Karen. It's so much worse.
I'm sorry.
I respect your apology, but I don't forgive you.
Okay. One last thing. Let's try.
So many things just flitted through my brain. Yeah, you saved the best for last, didn't you?
I did.
You are, it's staring me down. Right, and now I feel implicitly pressured to put that on my face. Thank you so much. This was a total setup, and you guys knew about it.
You don't have to, but it's a little uncomfortable for me if you don't.
Wow, passive-aggressive much?
I've been accused of that.
Well, whoever did it was spot on. All right, fine. I feel pressured. I feel like I can't say no. I feel like, okay, fine. It's got a little tubular opening.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah, that feels right.
Okay, if you say so.
That's better.
I'm still really mad at you.
I know, but I just feel so much more comfortable now.
Fine, I'm glad you feel more comfortable because I feel like an idiot.
No, I think it all makes sense.
Okay, fine, agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. While we're here in the smallest masks, I have a gift for you. And I could only give it to you.
You have a gift for me?
I have a gift for you, and I could only give it to you with that mask on. This is a gift.
Wait.
This is a photograph
Those are my students.
of your students.
You got me a photograph of my student?
I did. This is a photograph that my mother took at the Calder garden opening. And she saw some
Who's Calder?
this famous sculptor.
Calder?
Calder. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm terrible with pronunciation.
No, it's fine.
I meant to do that. This is Calder garden opening. And your students were there. And they were performing.
Oh my
and,
God. And your mother took this picture?
She's photographs and she took the picture.
Wow,
and
shall I show it to the camera?
please. And I've met several of them. Some were your students that I visited.
Yes.
And others were some of the clown soiree students.
Yes. They look very artistic here, don't
They
they?
look like they're working on something.
It's a very serious piece.
very serious piece.
Yes.
But it reminded me of when you were saying how, sometimes you need not a stage. You can perform anywhere.
You are drawing connections, Karen,
I tend to do that.
in front of our very eyes. It's amazing.
Okay. We can take off our masks.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
Oh, I really brought my cold back.
Sorry, you can
No, it's
keep
totally
that
fine.
nose.
I appreciate the provocation.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been a while since I put on a red nose, so
It's important that you revisit it sometimes. I think so.
it's very true. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the photo.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for being here today at Rowan on Devised Performance with Sarah Sanford. See you next time.